All right, it looks like we are live. Well, welcome everyone. I'm Kelly O'Connor. Today's live is titled Why Wealth Creation and Impact Creation Are Different Skills. I've spent a lot of time studying philanthropy, legacy, and what it really means to create lasting impact. And one realization keeps coming back to me. Creating wealth and creating impact are not the same skill. At first, maybe that sounds obvious, but the more I think about it, the more important it seems. Think about what it takes to create significant wealth. You first have to identify an opportunity, then take the risks, allocate capital, solve problems, build teams, lead people, persist through all kinds of failure, adapt, learn, execute. Most successful people it develops all of those skills over decades. And there's countless topics to try to master. And the reason we know all of those different skills work is because the evidence is obvious. The businesses exist, the investment portfolios exist, the results are measurable. But then something interesting happens. Eventually, many successful people reach a point where the question changes. It shifts from how do I create more to what do I do with what I've created? I actually think that's one of the most important questions a successful person can ever ask, because it's a completely different question. And I'm not sure we talk about it enough. Creating impact requires a different set of skills. It requires clarity, intentionality, patience, sometimes humility, and often a willingness to think beyond our own lifetime. That's not something most entrepreneurs spend decades practicing. Most entrepreneurs spend decades building, not preserving. Most investors spend decades accumulating and not distributing. And most business owners certainly spend decades growing, but not perpetuating. So let me ask you a question. Why is it that someone who's spent 30 years mastering wealth creation can suddenly feel uncertain when the conversation shifts to legacy? I think that's worth thinking about. Now, I want to be careful. I'm not suggesting successful people aren't generous. In fact, most of them are extraordinarily generous. But I've started wondering if generosity and permanence are actually two different conversations. Someone can be remarkably generous and still unintentionally leave the organizations they love financially vulnerable. I have a video out of Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, who has what he calls 5 for 5. He picks 5 charities for 5 years, and then he's off to other charities, potentially leaving those causes he loves very vulnerable. Years ago, my counterpart, Rob, he wrote one of the largest checks he'd ever written to an organization that meant everything to his family. And afterwards, he asked the director what he thought was a simple question. He said, "Tell me about your endowment." And they looked at him and said, "We don't have these for nearly 4 decades, thousands of generous gifts, years of faithful supporters, and yet nothing permanent had been built." That one conversation changed everything for him. It started him asking different questions like, what separates temporary impact from enduring impact? Why do some missions become stronger over time while others spend every year trying to replace yesterday's donors? I don't think the answer is simply more money. If it were, every well-funded initiative would succeed. And we just know that's simply not true. I think it has something to do with intentionality, with structure, with thinking beyond immediate results. One champion donor we spoke with said something I'll never forget. He told us, "I'm not buying green bananas anymore." Now, he was older, and what he meant was he wasn't concerned about his tax breaks. He was asking something deeper. What will all of this ultimately mean? is where he was going. I think that's the question more and more successful people begin asking. Instead of how much more can I build, it transitions to what survives me. Maybe that's why wealth creation and impact creation feels so different. One is measured by literally what you accumulate. The other is measured by what continues. One ends with ownership. The other begins with stewardship. And perhaps that's why they're different skills. So I'll leave you with this. Most people spend a lifetime learning how to build wealth, but almost no one teaches us how to build permanence. I wonder if that's one of the most important skills we'll ever need. I genuinely would like to hear your thoughts on this. Do you think wealth creation and impact creation are different skills, or are they simply different stages of the same journey? Thanks for joining me.